Hello everybody, welcome back to Momo vs. MTG. Today we're taking a look at another personal commander deck tech of mine on Elminster. This bad boy came out in Commander's Legends Battles for Baldur's Gate, and I really like this guy's abilities overall. Thought it was pretty neat and said, hey, why not make a commander out of him? So, Elminster for 3 mana and Azorius, you get a legendary planeswalker, Elminster. Whenever you scry, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of cards looked at when scrying this way. +2 is to draw a card, then scry 2. And the -3 is exile top card of your library, create a number of 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature tokens with flying equal to that card's mana value. And of course, he can be your commander, comes in with 5 loyalty. A lot of people build Elminster with pure scry tribal and discounting cheaper spells and kind of not storming up in a way, but really scrying through your entire deck and doing other things. However, I really like his -3 ability to create a bunch of 1/1 flying fairy dragon creature tokens on the battlefield. That's really what I built the deck around, so to do that, a lot of these permanents in this deck have a high CMC because general idea of the deck is we want to get a high cost card, leave it there on top, and then with Elminster -3, and then we get to create a bunch of dragon creature tokens. Because if we take a look down here real quick before we dive in, is our average mana curve is 4.45. So we have a lot of expensive spells and we need some decent ramp to get there. So let's take a look at that. So, first on the list we have our classic Soul Ring, Azorius Signet, Mind Stone, Sky Diamond, Thought Vessel, As Foretold. So your generic mana rock ramp. And the ones that I really want to take a look at is As Foretold. I think it's a neat fit to deck since we have a lot of expensive cards. If we can get this down early, it really pays dividends. So for 3 mana, it reads, as an enchantment, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on As Foretold. Once each turn, you may pay 0, rather than pay for the mana cost for a spell you cast with converted mana X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold, right? So if you have 3 counters on this, you can play a 3 spell for free, which is pretty sick to see. And, eventually later on, we're casting, huge spells with big mana values for free with this. So As Foretold is a sweet card. Midnight Clock, one of my favorite mana rocks in blue, taps for mana or can wheel your hand away and draw you fresh 7 if you do happen to run low. And Worn Power Stone is just generic ramp. So we have some decent generic ramp there, and then from there, let's move down the list and see what we're really trying to do here. Starting on the left here, we have a decent amount of board wipes. This is probably actually the most amount of board wipes I have in a given deck. Because you really don't have too much of a board state since it's mostly instants and sorceries. We take a look at that number here. We have a total of 6 creatures, 19 instances, 12 enchantments, and 18 sorceries. Because we are generally getting a lot of our blockers from our commander. That is the main game plan for generating creatures. We have other ways which we'll take a look at. But, more or less on that. So we don't mind too much if our creatures get wiped. Aetherize, a nice one, returns attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Aether Spout's kind of same thing, but they get put on top of their owner's library, so decent protection for yourself if you're getting swung at, with a Triumph of the Hordes or something like that. Terminus fits extremely well in the deck because his miracle costs. So if we know if we're scrying a lot in our deck, we can leave this on top before our first draw step the next turn. We can pay just a white with the miracle cost and put all creatures in the bottom of their owner's library. And again, if we only have, a creature out and our planeswalker is not affected, so Terminus is really good for our deck. Hours of Reckoning is nice because we have our creature tokens we can evoke with to destroy all non-token creatures. So exceptionally well in the deck. Undo's Inversion is kind of nice since it is kind of free. We can either play as our land drop or, in a pinch for 8 mana, destroy all non-land permanents. Vanquish the Horde, another high-cost CMC card to destroy all creatures that gets reduced. And Dusk works extremely well, right? Because all of our 1/1 creatures will not get destroyed with the first sight of dusk. So those are the deck, and important to take note of. I'm sorting this by the mana value. So if we happen to leave a Dusk Dawn on top of our deck, it's a total mana value of 4 here and 5 here, so 9. 9 mana. If we -3 our Planeswalker, we would create 9 Blue Fairy Dragon creature tokens. So that's why a lot of board wipes are more expensive, so it's kind of nice to have extra to deck in case we need to exile them if they're the top card, or to use them at our leisure. And again, some of these creatures and cards in here, we're trying to get the most expensive cards in Magic, mana-wise, right? To be able to create as many tokens as possible. Going down from there, I only have 4 counterspells in a deck because I feel like I have some decent removal and other things. So counterspells are up to your decision. I have, just offer your confused counterspells. Dove and Veto, since we do have white, why not? Access to 9 is kind of sweet too, because it's all about the token theme, and we have some token support in the deck. So a little more expensive of a counterspell. Again, we can exile with our commander, or cast it and create a whole bunch of 1/1s. And for draw engines, we don't really need to draw too much in the deck. Elminster does have a plus ability to draw and scry. However, we do have some generic draw like Mystic Remora. Selûne's Vision, again, is a freebie because it has another side that is a land. Archmage of Emerius, we are casting a lot of spells in the deck, so there's one of a few creatures in the deck. Cast as instant sorcery, draw a card. Court of Grace gives the Monarch ability, and again is in theme with creating the tokens. Emergency Powers, I think, is a neat fit in the deck. 7 mana, so good with Elminster, but then also gives you a fresh draw 7, and you can put a 7-drop permanent onto the battlefield from your hand. Shuffles everyone's hand and graveyard up. Can kind of count as graveyard hate in a way. Seagate Restoration, one of the better cards, right? 8 mana to exile with Elminster, or doubles as a land, and can come in untapped as well. But also draws card equal to the number of cards in your hand, and you have no maximum hand size. So really nice stuff. The Delve cards are extremely well here, right? Because they get cheaper. We get to exile stuff from our graveyard, draw cards. So really nice set package of draw here, and it's plenty of draw for the deck. And then since we are drawing a decent amount between all our spells, Ominous Seas is kind of nice too. Especially with so many board wipes, we can summon the 8/8 Krakens on our leisure once we draw. And we have, 8 Omen counters on this bad boy. Moving down from there, we have just some generic good stuff for the deck, which I think fits pretty well. But this is probably the stuff you can mess with the most if you were to, take this deck, edit on your own. Nice Foretell card, right? So we can cast this later on for cheaper, but we get to create a 4/4 white Angel Warrior creature token flying with Vigilance. If this spell was foretold, create Exodus tokens instead. So nice dual utility here, and we can make spells cheaper to pay into its costs through the first part of Elminster's ability as well. So we do want to still be scrying a decent bit to make our instants and sorceries cheaper for the turn. Moving down from there, we have Psychic Battles, which is an interesting one. It was only reprinted once, I guess, in Invasion, but it reads, for 5 mana, whenever a player chooses one or more targets, each player reveals the top card of his or her library. The player who has revealed the card with the highest converted mana cost may change the target or targets. If 2 or more cards are tied for the highest cost, the target remains unchanged. So again, if someone casts a Chaos Warp and this is out, everyone would then reveal the top card of the library. Person with the highest, CMC spell up there would be able to change the targets. And since we are running such high cost permanents like Commit Memory, we'll go through the list. A Draco, right? If you have a Draco, you have the highest cost card in the game, of course, right? You can change it to a new target. So basically, you become in control of all the targeted removal, which is pretty sick to see. I like it in deck. Really nice fit here. Moving down, we have Elminster Simulacrum, right? Just fits on theme with Elminster. It's a flavor win card. So each opponent, you create a token of a copy up to one target creature that player controls. So basically, steal the best creature from your opponents. You make a copy of it. Said and done is a nice recursion on a spell, or you get to tap creatures. And again, the dual modal cards, CMC combined for Elminster's ability, and Clone Legion, right? 9 mana. Sometimes we cast this, or sometimes we just exile this, right? Each creature target player controls create a token that's a copy of that creature. So we could pick the person with the best board state and get a copy of it. So nice fun cards here. And lastly, Draco, right? Mainly for the 16 CMC. Usually want to be keeping this on top somehow to exile it with, you know, good old Elminster. Because then we create 16 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature tokens, which is fun to do. Can recommend. Lands, we have a decent amount of lands. I think we have a total of 34 lands. The important lands I took out here, but of course we have some Halls of Heliod Generosity, in case we have an enchantment we want to bring back. Just some general fixing. Mystic Sanctuary is nice. I have a lot of islands. We can recur spells. That kind of deal. Moving down from there, we have just general protection. This is a part of the deck I might be able to add more to, but this is what I have for now. Really up to you. Blazing Archon is a really sick creature if you can resolve. However, you're usually exiling this with Elminster anyways, but creatures can't attack you. It's a strong effect if you do get to resolve this. Protector of the Crown, right, for 6 mana. You become the Monarch, so a Monarch's introduced, you're drawing cards. All damage to be dealt to you is dealt to Protector of the Crown instead. It's a really nice card. I think it's just generally just good card to have and fits nice on theme. The Fairy's Protection, of course, right? Phasing out protects you from a lot of stuff. And your permanents phase out, and then your life total can't change. Divine Presence, I think, is a really awesome one for 3. If a source would deal 4 more damage to a creature or player, that source deals 3 damage to that creature or player instead, right? Since we don't really care, because we have a lot of small, you know, token beaters, this can really help, you know, the big stompy creatures, kind of tone them down a little bit. Someone has a big 20/20 creature, it's now going to be dealing 3 damage instead. So really gives good protection for everyone, but you in particular, which is nice to see. Moving down from there, some removal. A lot of other stuff has removal, you know, stapled onto it. We have our Pongify, our Reality Shift, Exile Creature, Elspeth Conquers Death, right? Exile permanent with CMC 3 or greater, slows down opponents for casting non-creature spells. And then also, the last part is most important maybe, return target creature or planeswalker from the graveyard to battlefield, put a loyalty counter. So we can get Elminster back if it gets removed or dies. We can put it in the graveyard if we have an ECD on deck. It's cool to see. Banishing Stroke, right, for 6. Put target artifact, creature, or enchantment on the bottom of its owner's library. So for 6 mana for removal, it's pretty expensive, but we can usually get this miracle trigger, right, by stacking our deck in the right order. Powerful removal, I think, is putting something, you know, on the bottom of someone's deck. Then we have Warrant and Warden, right? So we can either put target attacking creature or blocking creature on top of its library, or create a 4/4 Sphinx. So nice dual option. Again, high CMC like Commit Memory for Elminster. Remove something, put it second from the top, or it's a wheel later on. Kind of shuffles everyone's hand, draws 7 new cards. So again, like to see, of course, these multiple options. You'll see a lot of these cards in this deck, not only for the high CMC, but also for giving more options to do on your given turn, which I like. Then we have 12 instances of straight up scry, right? Castle Vantrance, land that scries, a little expensive, but in a pinch, you need that scry trigger, it's there. Temple of Lightment, right? Free land that scries, comes in tap. Same thing with Zalhalfern Void, same idea, scry 1. Mystical Speculations, probably one of the best cards in the deck, because it has buyback 2, so it kind of pays for the expensive spells, right? 3 mana, scry 3, with the buyback of 2, so 3 mana totally invested. But for Elminster, if we're casting our next instant or sorcery, it'll get reduced by 3 because we are scrying 3. Or for a one-shot, if you don't want to pay the buyback, reduce the next spell by 3 mana. Nice to see. Now for classic preordained, scry 2, draw. Serum Vision, draw a card, then scry 2. This saga here is kind of neat. I like this one a lot. First it scries 2, so instantly cheapens a spell. You choose the name card. Then when you cast the next card, kind of set up your next turn, basically saying, hey, I'm going to cast this card. You draw 2 cards. Then you get to see the top card of everyone's library, including yours. This is the important part, right? So you know what you're potentially exiling, of course, with Elminster. Behold the Multiverse, scry 2, draw 2. Inscription's Insight's a nice kicker one, because it scries 2. If we pay the kicker, you turn 2 creatures to their owner's hand, or target player creates a XX blue illusion creature token, where X is number of cards in their hand. And then I really like the enchantments, right, because they stick around. You get to do it every turn. Instant sorceries cost 1 less. We have a lot of those for 4 mana. And whenever you do, you get the free scry. So nice way to build reoccurring synergy in your deck. Same with Netherrise Puzzle Ward for 4. You roll a d4 and then scry where X is the result. So if you get a natural 4, you get to scry 4. And of course, when you roll the highest natural number, you get to draw a card. So really cool to see the deck. Not too much dice rolling synergy, but the scry alone I feel like is really good. And then Tamiyo's Epiphany, scry 4, draw 2. So we have plenty of card draw in the deck. You usually can set up your turns how you like, ready for an Elminster -3. Then we have some generic token creators. Murmur Mystic is the creature, and same with the Sky Summoner for 4 mana each. You get to create 2/2 Drakes or 1/1 flying, bird illusion creature tokens with flying, so really good. And then we have Divine Visitation, right? One of the most important cards in the deck. One or more tokens would be created. You create that many 4/4 angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. So again, since we can make potentially like 16 blue fairy dragon creature tokens with Elminster, if they all come in as 4/4 flying angels, it kind of puts a turn clock for everyone else, right? Generally, you set up to end games. Moving on down from there, we can create 2 1/1 Thopters with this and gain 1 life for each creature. Since you create a lot of creature tokens, nice way to recover life, or you could tap a creature immediately, draw a card in a pinch. Nice options. Shark Typhoon, pretty sick card. We get the enchantment down, because whenever we cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's CMC. And of course has the cycle ability too. Love Ikoria, one of my favorite sets, and fits extremely well in the deck since we can be, creating a whole bunch of sharks on our leisure. Amir's Call, love this land, right? 4 mana, so nice to exile with Elminster. Or if we cast it, create 2 4/4 white angel creature token flying. And the rest of our creatures can get indestructible to our next turn. And again, doubles as a land and could come in untapped if we pay 3 life. And then Storm the Herald, nice card for the deck, 10 mana to exile with Elminster. Or, if we have a lot of life total, why not cast this? Create that many white Pegasus creature tokens. Of course, with Divine Visitation, they can all be 4/4 angels instead. So really nice token synergy here in the deck. And then moving down from there, just a couple more to look at. We have Halmar's Depth, which is an interesting land. Technically doesn't scry, right? However, we get to manipulate the top of our deck when it comes into play. Look at the top 3, put them back in any order. So it can be really helpful later on, even if you draw it later. Brainstorm, of course. If we're stuck with maybe a Draco in our hand, we'd like to put it back on top. We definitely can do that. Sensei Top, right? Repeatable, looking at the top 3, setting up our next -3 on our Planeswalker. And then Scroll Rack too, right? Again, if we're stuck with the cards in our hand, choose any number of cards, put them on top of our library in order that you would like, and then draw that many. So, nice way to, clear out your hand of some junk maybe, and keep the stuff on top that you want to. And of course, an Enlightened Tutor, why not? One of these here to get one of our important enchantments, maybe Divine Visitation. maybe as foretold if it's early on, we have options. So really nice to see. This deck was a lot of fun to build and is a lot of fun to play. General idea is flood the board with a whole bunch of tokens, and then hopefully go over top since they already have flying. You can defend yourself as need be with lots of removal. This deck really does have a lot of options when it's versing decks, which is really nice to see. You can sit down in most casual, of course, higher end casual, play tables. So, yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on the deck. Maybe you have an Elminster of your own. I'm curious what direction you decide to go with Elminster if you did. If you have another deck you want me to take a look at, you can reach out to me. I like to do deck doctors. I like to take a look at someone else's deck, maybe give some suggestions if they have some questions. But if not, thanks for hanging out, and thanks for hanging out with me with Momo versus MTG. So, till the next one, take care.